Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast, our final edition of the Scratch Off for Artemis Fowl.
Yes, this one covering Book 8, The Last Guardian.
Yes, and this is a bittersweet book in terms of the ending of the series, but somehow we managed to find some little tidbits of fun within here.
Right.
Now, if this is your first time coming...
Oh yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and notification updates for future podcasts and multi-pause videos.
Absolutely. And we call it scratch offs because what we do is find lines within the book where it says one thing, but we explain to you what the characters really or in culture really wanted to say, but couldn't. If you haven't read this book series, it's written by, again, Owen Colfer. He's a brilliant, genius author, and you can find these books anywhere, including your local library, but we recommend you just go ahead and buy the series. You can get a great price for the entire series, because once you read the first, you're not going to want to put these books down at all.
Right.
They are appropriate for all ages, 8 to 80 to 800. Owen Colfer himself has said that he wrote the books for everyone of any age to read.
Right.
So
this one was a pretty big deal for Artemis Fowl fans, knowing this was the final book in the franchise. So Last Guardian showcases that Opal Boy is back for the umpteenth time, but this time we gotta get rid of her for good because now she's got a real messed up plan. This time she's gonna bring back a race of fairies that are called the Berserkers that have been long dead. She's gonna resurrect them, and then they're gonna go and take over the bodies of the strongest people they can find, so that when they open a gate, it's gonna wipe out all the humans and just bring it back to the fairies world. It's like, this is pretty dark. It's like Black Clover.
Be that queen. But then she decided not the queen, the empress.
It's like, okay, lady, calm down. So now it's up to Artemis and Holly and Butler and the remaining characters to stop her once and for all, because it's something that you will never forget.
Now, these scratch-offs are really, really fun and important because, as we said, this finishes up the series, and some of them kind of reveal, we think, some information that Colfer wanted to share.
Exactly.
But really didn't want to just come out and point it out. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he just didn't want to.
Right.
We
We're
don't
sure.
know.
We're sure. So in here, there's still really fun parts amidst all of the action and the pretty dark parts in here if you've read it already. So the first one actually starts with the cover. This particular cover is done by Arnaldo Mondadori Editori, I think.
Arnaldo Mondadori Editori.
Yes, and he did the cover. If you have this where it looks like a green background and Artemis is on the front, he did the artwork for it, and it's so well done. This is
the best one of all the books. Why didn't they have him commission him to do all of the covers for every book?
I hope he did. I really hope he did, because if not, it's like, how'd you miss up on that?
Right.
So it was so funny because it looks so cool on there and how Artemis was depicted. Mom just had this one conversation where she opened the book.
Now that's Holly's man.
It's like, we haven't even opened the book and you're already stunned. Really? Like, yeah, the artwork's fantastic. It's like, oh gosh, here we go. It's like, if this is what he looked like by the end of it, it's like, oh boy, it's like it's in time paradox caught up with him.
Yes.
Okay, so we cut to, like, it's been about 6 or 7 months since Atlantis Complex, and Artemis has been cured. He's actually been cured a while. He just wanted to amuse the doctor, so he just stayed longer just to do that. So he's been released, and within the same clinic, they have this clone of Opal that they had back when book 4, and they've been keeping her there all this time. And apparently Holly has been visiting her, and it's a bit of foreshadowing for something later in case you have read it. So it said that she's always been by herself, so Holly's been taking to visit her. And it says she had at least 2 friends now. Artemis had taken to joining Holly on her visits and often would sit silently beside her, which was very unusual for him because he could talk sometimes. And Mom said, okay, something's up here.
And I said, no man sits with a woman visiting the clone of somebody he hates. He really loves Holly. He just wanted to spend time with his woman.
And I was like,
no man does that. Nobody does that. You really gotta love the person. He hates Opal Boy, and rightly so.
Right.
So no, he would not spend time with her. And every day visiting with her, visiting.
Right. Another thing about that, the Artemis has been stuck in Haven for months, so Holly's just been visiting him a lot too, and it's like, oh gosh, is her dream come true?
Yes.
And another thing in here,
and she doesn't go home.
Ever.
And Foley pointed it out. They're like, you go home now. Have
So another thing in here is that their interactions are a bit odd, and I'll get to it as we go further into the scratch-offs. The second one is just, really to me, it felt simple, is that Artemis put a hand on Holly's shoulder, and Mom kind of pointed out that these type of interactions have been happening a lot within just a few chapters, and you said...
I asked her, I said, have you noticed they keep touching each other in this book?
Yeah.
Only in this book.
Yeah, none of the others have been like that, not even in book 6. So then you kind of can probably guess what's going on with that. Then with the next one is that Foley built a shuttle for the two of them traveling when they have what they call the techno crash. When a version of Opal is taken out, all the stuff that she built immediately shuts down. It's like what they thought was going to happen to computers in the Y2K. So in here, Foley built a shuttle for the two of them in case of an emergency. Is that this was why the shuttle was referred to as the Silver Cupid. It had stuff for Artemis and Butler, the human stuff, and then for Holly it was like a little Cupid on the front because she's a descendant of Cupid himself. And so it was a little romantic sounding for Artemis' taste. And so Holly referred to it as by name as much as possible. And I was like, what? Why? It was like, wait, is it because Artemis wouldn't say it, so she said it for both of them?
And I said, yes, it's romantic. And I'm going to borrow from Nozaki-kun. But I love him.
You keep saying it. You keep saying it. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. So he wasn't comfortable saying it, so she just said it all the time. It's probably like, will you please stop saying it? Oh gosh, she really loved that name, didn't she? Okay, so then the next one has nothing to do with Artemis and Holly. It's just something really funny. That Opal gains all this power, and she's so overpowered that at one point she vaporized everything within a mile radius, including like plant life, insect life, what have you. All of it was gone. It was like she's really gone. Oh, the incredibly powerful. And Mom's response to this event was,
this witch is crazy.
Yeah, Opal was no joke anymore. I mean, yeah, she was kind of funny how crazy she got, but she was like not as funny anymore. It was like, okay, you need to get rid of her.
She's got one place in here she's funny that I hope you cover later. If not, we'll be sure to point it out before the end of this.
Right. And then there's also in here that now we've covered a lot of the Artemis and Holly interactions, is that I noticed is like they act really different. In 7, not just because of the Atlantis complex, and in book 8, they act really different with each other during these months skipping from the other book. And when you had told me about this, the part where he just stays with her all this time every day, and it's like, the way they act, are you sure they're not together and they just don't tell you? Because they act like they're already together, and it's just so casual, or unless they just worked off each other that well. So then when we kind of jump forward to where she gets these extra powers, and she's talking with number 1, and she doesn't want number 1 to leave because he's the last single friend left. Everyone else has been paired up with somebody. So she talks about Trouble Kelp. Trouble Kelp's actually been hooked up with Lily Frond, what they call the blonde airhead. And it says, though what he sees in that airhead is beyond me. And then Mom's reply was,
that's because she was the second choice bimbo.
What?
And I'm not calling her bimbo. Holly called her bimbo.
Yeah, the blonde bimbo.
In which book?
About the first or second book.
So I'm only referring to how Holly referred to her.
Yeah, it is absolutely hilarious. Because by this point, people thought, oh, she ended up with trouble. But no, it says it's been 3 days. They all went wrong. They got kicked out somewhere. She didn't want to deal with him anymore. So Trouble went with someone else. And number 1's like the last one that's single. She kind of doesn't want him to leave. So number 1 kind of took that like the wrong way. And so he says he took her hand again, or in his, or something like that. It said 2 years will fly by. That's how long he's going to be gone at the moon for some type of experiment. It said, maybe you can get a lunar pass and come to visit me. And I said, maybe. Now, enough changing the subject. What did you just do to me?
And she took her hand away.
Yeah. And then Mom kind of noticed this, which I didn't even catch the first time. I was clueless about it. And what did you say was going on?
And I said, even number 1 was hitting on her. He was trying to make his move, but she wasn't.
Yeah, I was like, you weren't kidding. She was polite about it. She was polite, like, no.
In every book, they tell you that she's pretty. She's very pretty.
Yeah, every species finds her attractive.
So, yes, even number 1 was trying to.
And it tells you that she's young because number 1 is 14 or 15, about as old as Artemis. So if he's able to do that with her, then that means she's got to be around the same age, too. So then I said, wow, you weren't kidding. Like, she is faithful to Artemis. For her, I guess it's Artemis or nobody. She doesn't want anyone else but Artemis Fowl. She is very loyal, gotta say. So they weren't kidding about elves being loyal. So then we jump down to here where they're running from the berserkers. They have taken over Juliet and Artemis's brothers, and they have like these superhuman strength and stuff, even though they're in these human bodies. So it gets pretty down to the wire where Mulch actually saves them. He hides them like underground to the thing of a plan. And Mulch says, "Oh, this is the typical kind of mess you get into, Artemis." And hey, Holly snapped, "This is not the time to blame Artemis." Like, oh, like, oh.
Here she goes again. You can't talk about him in front of her. You can't. She's not gonna let you badmouth Artemis. Those days are over, people. Just
Right?
stop it.
Right? Like, are you sure? Are you sure? And then we jump a little forward where they think that Miles has been free from the berserker that's taken over him. You don't know if he's free or not, so they kind of have this little test for him. It's like, yes, I'm back to normal. Why do you keep suspecting things? So Holly brings in this supposed to be animal fat, and animal fat is supposed to weaken them because they don't eat meat, so it drains their magic. So it says that Holly waltzed the barrel trolley into the center of the office. And this is Artemis's office, so you know he literally has his own office.
Right.
He's parked. She parked it on the wooden floor, and not on one of the precious Afghan rugs. That seems to be a common trope in these books that Artemis insisted, describing in great historical detail every time she visited the office. And I guess I didn't catch this, and then Mom told me.
I said, every time? Every time?
Yeah.
That means she visits him almost all the freaking time. That means she's always there. And she says patiently. And
Yes.
go on and
Yes,
on
and like,
on.
wait a minute, and it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, she must really like hearing him talk, because not only did she listen to that every time she was there, she heard enough to know automatically to not put the barrel there. And then notice, they never state she was annoyed by it.
It's Hori and Kesha.
They never say she's annoyed, she's heard it too many times, she's got through her head. No, she's like, she wants to hear him talk, like she has an excuse to hear him talk all the time. It's
Exactly.
absolutely hilarious. She doesn't mind him going on for like forever.
All he needs to do is karaoke.
Right? Oh my gosh. Okay, and then there's this point in the book where they say friend, best friend, dear friend, and it's like so it's almost ad nauseum. And Mama notices like this is almost like every other sentence is the word friend, like they're trying to tell you they're only friends.
And I was
And
like, stop putting friend every 5 minutes, Disney. You're not going to convince us of something that isn't there. They're not forever friends. They're not marrying human friends. No, they're more than friends, and it's obvious more than any place in any other book that they are more than friends, especially toward the end of this book.
Right.
So just stop it.
Right, because we definitely got to bring that up when we get to the end of these scratch-offs. Then there's this point where Artemis decides that he's going to do a sort of self-sacrifice where they're going to open the gates because it's supposed to kill off all the humans. Well, if he does it, it's supposed to be opened by fire. If he does it, if it gets him, then he'll survive it. So Holly knows he's up to something, but he tells her, oh, it's nothing. But it's pretty much, he lies to her and says, no, it's nothing. But then she still figures out what it is, despite he told her nothing's happening. She knew exactly what he's doing. He said, why are you trying to kill yourself doing this? And it's like, how on earth did you figure all that out without me telling you?
And then she turns her head.
Yeah.
And can't move.
Yeah.
To watch him.
Yeah, and she's trying to knock him out, like give like a paralyzation thing, but he ends up doing it back on her, so she couldn't stop him, and she's like really upset and torn out. She doesn't want him to do it. She's telling her, I'll be fine. But if something goes wrong, he gives her, like a fail-safe or something.
And she turns her head, and that's all she can do.
Yeah. And so there you go. So then the teen genius left, and Holly could not even turn her head to watch him go. And then it's like, okay, this really is telling you something. And Mama said
she wanted to watch her man.
Friend, and it's like, yeah, and it said my dear friend. I'm like, okay, how many times?
And like, think about this.
It's only during this.
Those of you who've read this series, name one time, except for after he got his memory back and he learned that they were friends, is he going, my dear friend? Over and over.
Right. And there's a point where it says, I was a broken boy and you fixed me. It's like, okay, come on. You don't say that to your friend. That sounds too suggestive. Okay, and then we get to, we're supposed to be Carrie, but it's supposed to be Holly. It said one of the pirates nudged Artemis and he went tumbling down the incline. His face sloping, I think, the dirt with each revolution. The second figure skidded beside him, and it seemed almost coordinated when they rolled to the foot of the Berserker gate. And Mom said,
"Dang, even the clone was in sync with him. They're literally a couple that's being bruised and bound together."
Like, even she wasn't there, she was there.
How was a clone doing that?
And then we get to the end of the story.
But you have to remember, for those of you who haven't read the book, that the clone is based exactly off of the original person.
Right.
And the only thing missing is the ability to think.
Right.
And behave like the original person with the clone was made from.
Right.
So it's Holly's clone, and she was sticking him like glue.
Right. So it's still what's happening.
Yes.
So then we get to this point where it's the big sacrifice part, and it's really a tearjerker, and Holly's doing everything she can to not let it happen. She wanted to try to go in and grab him out. It's like, if she goes in there, she's going to get killed. So what happens is that, like, because he has the fairy eye, it takes him instead. And
so, yes, he does die. If you haven't read it, we're sorry.
Yeah, this is how this chapter ends.
And I remember when I first read it the first time through, and I turned the book over and looked at the cover, I'm like, you know, Disney, you can't keep crap to yourself. The picture on the cover literally lets you know that he's dead, and they have Holly holding him
like
in
mourning.
her lap.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't notice it until you read that part. And then the second thing is, why would you kill him off? I mean, I was so bothered. Yes, I know. That I didn't even want to finish reading the book, and you were like, read the book.
You have to finish it, yes. So then we get to the end of the story, and they tell what the failsafe is with the clone. And it said it's been 6 months since the event, and they worked on getting the clone through his DNA. And when they do that, they try to bring him back, and it's like his spirit has been in this one place for 6 months straight, so it can go into a clone body and come back.
And so you know he planned it that way. You have to read the book to find out.
Right, it's so much, we can't say it all here. And it really tells you how nervous she was the whole time, and yet they still stay friends. But we mentioned that there's also a thing called like berry flowers there. We look up the definition. Yes, and you look up the definition and the color and everything. Everything that goes into this final chapter, like the last few pages, pretty much is Owen call for confirming what's going to happen with Artemis and Holly after the end of the book. Plus, a man on Tumblr called this out with the color coding of the roses, the types of roses, and the fact that when Artemis comes back, the first thing he says is what Holly said to him when they first met. And Owen has stated that fans have really liked the ship so much he considered putting that as the ending for the book originally. So it looks like he didn't do it officially, but it looks like he did it under radar or in subtext because so many people want to see them together. I think he left all these little clues throughout the final pages to let the readers know, yes, it is canon after this event is over, because of how the story has gone. So then we get to the final lines of the book. And it says, Holly recounts the first chapter of the first book, line for line. If you read the first book, get it and put it next to the 8th book. And she literally said line for line what the opening pages for chapter 1 about Artemis going to Home Ancient City because he's lost his memory, and she helps him recover it by helping to have these trigger words. And then it was actually really awesome to do that. But then Mom's like...
And freaking Kenneth Branagh took the final line and made it the entire movie. However, that's a brilliant detail for this book.
Yes, without like it was a callback. Everything was kind of like a parallel to book 1. All the events were like a disastrous, upscale version of book 1.
And that's another thing that really ruined the movie. For those of you who have loved this series for over 20 years, versus those of us who've just learned about it because of the movie and have grown to love it as much. Mm-hmm. For those of you who have been waiting for this, it had to just be like a nail in a coffin, just hammering it in to see that this movie was taken and made into the final line of the book series, and all the things you love about it were removed.
And Mulch being the narrator instead of Holly. So then with that, knowing this, that means she read all the previous books / files waiting for him and remembered the stuff by heart, so she was able to help him recover his memory.
And I think what you can really grasp from that is that she was reading it out loud to him.
Yes.
Like when you do to someone.
I like an audible.
Who's in a coma or something. They say read to them and talk to them so they hear you. So she spent every single day.
For 6 months.
Going there for 6 months, reading the files to him, talking to him. You know she was touching him. If she touched a freaking clone of Opal Cowboy, she was touching Artemis Fowl, whom she loved. So friend my butt. Friend my butt. She has to love him to go through all this.
Yes.
They're just friends, my A double fill it in.
Right.
No, they're not.
As we said, someone on Tumblr actually confirmed, like, they sort of all these details, like, look, it's obvious they're together, but I think maybe Owen knew some people were kind of put off because of people don't know how old they really are,
and
so
they don't understand how he explained the age to them.
Right. So he made Artemis older by the end because Foley screwed up on the clone, so he's 18 or slightly older. So now there's no concern about it when it happens afterward.
Right.
And it gets to the final one. The bonus with Foley is that Foley has pretty much accepted that Artemis is gone, but Holly hasn't. So Foley says to her, our friend is gone, Holly. Shouldn't you let him go? And then I added this line. I said, and then Kathleen, who's supposed to be Foley's wife, Kathleen got a call about Foley being in an accident, but he wasn't even in a car. It's like, and Holly was like near, like she said, like she almost wanted to hit him when he said that. She's like, he didn't give up on me. He didn't give up on Haven. I'm not giving up on him. Now tell me how to do this.
And that's just Foley. You couldn't be angry with Foley. You're just like, okay, here we go. This is Foley. This is how he thinks. So
right.
This again concludes our Scratch House versions. Thank you so much for joining us and sticking with us through this. We hope you found this entertaining as we did. Thank you, Rascal, for pointing out that I was saying these crazy things and didn't even realize it. I was just responding to what I read. The book series again is absolutely one that you're going to love and become obsessed with. It's impossible not to, again, regardless of your age. If you haven't read it, you need to get the series and just be enthralled and be entertained. And one great thing about this book is he said he wrote it for all ages, and it's true. Regardless of what age you are, it doesn't speak down to you. It's very intelligently written. It uses a lot of words that you would think, well, if this is for younger kids, you wouldn't put these words with definitions. They may have to look up in it, but he didn't do that. He doesn't write down to any reader. He makes it so that anyone who's reading it can feel they are worthy of reading the book. There's no way to put it. Right. Unlike the movie that dumbed it down and said that the readers of these books who were 20 years younger and now are 20 years older couldn't accept a 12-year-old criminal mastermind. Right. And I say that not to pick on the movie or to pick on Kenneth Branagh, but he stated that himself. But just to say, if you had taken the time and read the books yourself, you would have known not to do that. Right. And that's really why I wanted to point that out. Anyone involved in this movie clearly did not take the time to read all 8 of these books, because if they had, there's no way the movie would have been made the way it was. Right. So maybe all of us will get lucky enough that either there'll be another version done, or they will allow someone else who has read the series and truly loves the series to direct and produce and give the Artemis Fowl fandom the film version of the book that they deserve. Right. And with that, we hope so, because we now have a Percy Jackson reboot series coming that's going to probably fix the issues of the movie. So hopefully maybe Artemis Fowl will get one too, and it will be the proper adaptation. And lastly, at the time you're listening to this, in a couple of weeks, the final, what we hope is not the final, but we're being told may be, the Fowl Twins book, Fowl Twins Get What They Deserve, is coming out. Yes. So 2 days prior, we're going to give you a review on book 1 and book 2. Right. Deny All Charges. Right. So you can find out why you really should consider reading this series if you haven't. We know you love Artemis Fowl, but we're telling you this book series, when we decide to go ahead and give in and give it a read, it's just as entertaining. Yes. And Artemis does make an appearance in the first book, not the second book, but we're really hoping in the third book. Right. And yes, the books are still entertaining.
And there are no scratch-offs, but I'm gonna guess by what I've been hearing from people who've read it in Ireland, there's gonna be a few without even Artemis being involved.
And we can't wait. We've pre-ordered it.
Yeah.
So, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you for the Fowl Twins review.
All right. Oh, and part 2 of covering the Artemis Fowl movie.
Absolutely.
So, be sure to like, subscribe, notification updates on future podcasts and Walter Paws videos.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you so much for watching. I'm Ask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
And stay back, human. You don't know what you're dealing with.